You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com, thechrisvossshow.com. Welcome to the big show, my family and friends. The big circus spin in the sky. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, welcome to the Chris Voss Show Podcast. Today we're going to be talking baseball, the Yankees. You may have heard of them, a storied baseball franchise with multiple winners, and we're going to be talking about number 62, Aaron Judge, today, and a great new book that's come out on him that we'll be talking about as well. In the meantime, though, we have to always guilt and shame with the podcast ad plugs, as always, but they're pretty simple. Just refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Go to youtube.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Goodreads.com/Chris Voss, and let's see, there's the new threads there on the Instagram thing. There's the Twitter competitor. Go see us at the Chris Voss Official and the Chris Voss Show over there as well. Today we have an amazing gentleman and author on the show. He's the author of the latest book that has come out July 11th. 2023. It'll be coming out. You can pre-order it now wherever fine books are sold. 62, Aaron Judge, the New York Yankees in the pursuit of greatness. Bryan Hoch is on the show with us today. He's going to be talking about his amazing new book. He has covered New York baseball for the past 2 decades, serving as MLB.com's Yankees beat reporter since 2007, while making regular appearances on MLB Network. A 2-time New York City Marathon finisher, his wife Connie once danced on stage with Bruce Springsteen. Did she upstage you with that, or did Bruce upstage you with that? What's going on there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's hard to compete with Bruce Springsteen. So, I think she gets top billing there.
Oh, there you go. Well, you probably still forgave her because it is Bruce Springsteen, after all, really, when it comes down.
The boss. The boss. Come on, man. Yeah.
There you go. So the boss met the boss. I see how that works. So welcome to the show, Bryan. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm here in Yankee Stadium. It's a beautiful day. You can't tell by this little back room that I'm in, but it is beautiful. The sun is out, and the Yankees are going to play the Orioles here tonight. Yeah,
what a great place. You're calling right from inside the building.
The call is coming from inside the building. Yeah, exactly.
There you go. So give us the .coms. Where do you want people to find you on the interwebs, please?
Easiest way would be to go to Bryan-Hoch, HOCH.com, and that's the landing page for everything. You can find out about all the books, all the stories I'm writing for MLB.com, Yankees.com, and then, of course, you mentioned all the, we got to do threads now, huh? I just signed up for threads yesterday, and so it feels like 2009 all over again with the wild, wild west of Twitter. But, obviously Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and God, whatever comes next, right?
Yeah, I'm still trying to get caught up on TikTok. Like, I'm too old, and our stuff is probably a little too highbrow for most of the TikTok stuff. They're just like reading books. What's going on? I don't get this guy. So welcome to the show. What motivated you want to write this book?
Well, I'll tell you what, obviously Judge, as we know now, wound up catching Roger Maris, eclipsing it, setting the new single-season American League home run record, and that's where 62 comes from. But really it started coming into my mind last season around the All-Star break, probably right around now, actually. The Yankees were off to a great start. They had about a 15.5-game lead in the American League East, and Judge was playing like an MVP. And I'm not great at math, but I know that 31 is half of 62. So I know he had already gone about halfway there. And so this is about the point last year where I started just kind of collecting just in case. And then once he got around to August and he had 50 home runs, and I said, I started looking at the calendar. I said, he's going to break this record. And it wasn't a question of if he would, I think. It was more when. And so by that point, I started saying, okay, there is a story to be told here. And I don't want it to just be the day-to-day story of Judge chasing this record, but this chase this home run pursuit is a great way to kind of branch out, and it gives us a lot of spokes on the wheel to kind of talk about a lot of things about Major League Baseball, about the Yankees, about Judge, and to kind of peel back the layers of history and talk about what Roger Maris did in 1961. So I think it came together nicely. It was a perfect jumping off point to really tell some great baseball stories.
There you go. And to introduce people more to baseball, maybe some in our audience that are laymen to baseball,
sure.
And what the number 62 represents, give us a foundation of what that is and why it's important, and Babe Ruth and everything else.
Absolutely. So what we have is three great Yankees right fielders in Babe Ruth, Roger Maris, and now Aaron Judge, who have all held this same record, 60, 61, and 62 of the single season home run record in the American League. Now, they all played for the same team, played the same position, different ballparks, different eras, of course, but there is that connection there, that through line between Ruth and Maris and now Judge. And now, it's important to note that 62 is the American League record, but it is not the Major League record. Now, if you, 73 is actually a Major League record. Barry Bonds set it back in 2001, but as we found out about Bonds and Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, those were all performance enhanced or suspected to be performance enhanced. And I'll give myself some cover there. But I think that we look at the McGwire, Bonds, Sosa records now differently than certainly I do than what I saw last year with Judge, where testing is now in place and ostensibly everybody agrees that Judge did it clean. And so now this is we certainly talked to Roger Maris Jr., who wrote the foreword to this book, and he says that he now considers 62 the real record that Judge set last year. If you ask me, Bonds, I saw him do it, 73. I watched it. It happened. I don't want to pretend it didn't, but I do put it in a different bucket than what I saw last year with Judge.
And is this more important in this time and day and age because of that kind of? I think they kind of called it the asterisk era of the Bonds and all those things with the performance enhanced. They're like there's like an asterisk there as to those numbers.
Sometimes actually a real literal asterisk. One of the things that we have in the book here is that the record-breaking home run, it was actually the home run that Barry Bonds hit to pass Henry Aaron. It was his 756th career home run, and this is a career home run record. But it was purchased at auction by Mark Echo, who you may know, he's a designer, and he paid a lot of money to it. He stamped it with an asterisk, and then he donated it to the Hall of Fame that was in Cooperstown, New York. And you can actually go see it. It's still there on display because it's history. But, and obviously this guy had the money to literally put an asterisk on this ball and say, yeah, it's a record, but it's stained in some way. And so I think that, look, Barry Bonds was a fantastic player. McGwire, Sosa, those guys deserve to be mentioned. But there is a reason that none of those three players are in Cooperstown right now.
Oh, wow. You think they ever will be?
I think that if Bonds isn't going to get in, and he had 10 cracks there on the writer's ballot, he didn't get in, then I would say it's questionable. Because if you just looked at the numbers alone, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens both should have been first ballot Hall of Famers. They were both among the greatest players that I ever saw with my own two eyes. And but we found out too much, and I think that the chemical enhancements, the artificial there, that has definitely clouded it for a lot of the voters.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here with a little station break. Hope you're enjoying the show so far. We'll resume here in a second. I'd like to invite you to come to my coaching, speaking, and training courses website. You can also see our new podcast over there at chrisvossleadershipinstitute.com. Over there, you can find all the different stuff that we do for speaking engagements if you'd like to hire me, training courses that we offer, and coaching for leadership, management, entrepreneurism, podcasting, corporate stuff. With over 35 years of experience in business and running companies as CEO. And be sure to check out chrisvossleadershipinstitute.com. Now back to the show.
And so this probably adds a lot more value to what Aaron Judge did then.
Yeah, that I think it's important to make that connection, is that we haven't seen a season like that since the years where I'm talking about, in the late 90s and the early 2000s, when honestly it kind of made a mockery of the record book and people were breaking records every single year. And then baseball finally cracked down, and lo and behold, the power numbers came back down to earth a little bit. So I think that to have Judge doing it on the stage that he did it in New York City, playing for a prestigious franchise like the New York Yankees, it really did capture the national attention. And, they were cutting in on college football broadcasts in September to show his at-bats, which when have we ever seen that before?
That's true.
And when I saw that happening, I said, all right, this is more than just the Yankees right fielder is having a good season. This is more than just he's having an MVP season. It's more than just the Yankees are trying to lock up a playoff spot. This has become kind of a national phenomenon where even the Today Show and Jimmy Fallon are doing segments on the home run chase. And I said, this is something bigger, and it's a story that needs to be told in more of a long-form format.
And for those who aren't big into baseball, why is it so hard to get to 62? I mean, what are the odds? I mean, clearly there's only been 3 people who have naturally gotten to it in the history of baseball. Why is that? And why is it so hard? I mean, why does it mean something?
Well, I think it's hard just to hit one. So, it's obviously hitting a baseball. Ted Williams always used to say, hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do in sports. And you think about it, you got a guy who's 60 feet, 6 inches away from you, and he's throwing it in the high 90 mile per hour. You have a split second to react. And especially now, I think the pitchers are just becoming tougher and tougher to hit. Let's compare it to 1961 when Roger Maris broke that record and was in pursuit of that. You typically would face the same pitcher 3 or 4 times a game, and he's getting tired out there on the mound, and they weren't throwing that hard to begin with. They may be throwing 90 miles an hour, probably more likely 85 miles an hour. Now, in the modern day, you've got a complete stable of guys in the bullpen who are coming out. You go to the bullpen a lot earlier in the modern game. Guys are coming out throwing 97, 98, 99 miles an hour, some in the triple digits. You have a fraction of a second to react to those pitches coming in. They're throwing hellacious breaking stuff. It's not just fastballs and changeups. They have sliders. They have curveballs. They have all sorts of pitches. And there's a reason that batting averages around the game have gone down. And baseball has actually tried to counteract that by making some changes here in 2023. But last year, it was hard to hit, basically. And I think Judge did it on a level that we haven't seen. And from wire to wire, he had an MVP type year and did it in the shadow of a contract push too, where That was another thing with the business going on, the business side of baseball that we could explore in this book. He betting on himself. The Yankees offered him a lot of money, a contract extension on opening day. He turned it down, said, no, I'm going to bet on myself, and I bet I could do better than that. And darn if he didn't. He went out, had a great season, a season for the ages, and was rewarded with a 9-year, $360 million contract and named the 16th captain in New York Yankees history. So he really, to use a baseball phrase here, he pitched the perfect game from start to finish last year.
There you go. That guy wanted a raise, damn it.
Well, he was going to get raised in one way or the other. They offered him $213.5 million on opening day. And I remember I was there in the press conference, and I'll use a prop here. I had my notepad, and I remember writing that down, and I said, 213.5. I think I would take that offer.
Yeah, I probably would too.
And so credit to him. He looked at the competition out there, and you're in LA, so he looked at Mike Trout and he said, no, I'm going to get paid like Mike Trout. I want to be among the highest paid players in the game. And he said, and you're going to pay me like Mike Trout because I'm going to go out and have a season for the ages. And he did. And he put it all together. And the question with Judge, his entire career has never been about the talent. It's been about the health, because you got a guy who's 6'7", 282 pounds. He's essentially a football player in baseball cleats. But last year, it was just one of the greatest seasons I've ever seen.
And he kind of has you talk in the book about how he kind of has this kind of, I don't want to say backwoods, but, coming from that sort of aw shucks demeanor, small town California, all the way to stardom, somebody who's not like, an egotistical sort of rock star, like I can do whatever, a humbleness sort of thing of coming from, America, kind of what we kind of imagine baseball. How baseball works. The American pie, American American culture sort of thing, whatever.
There's a lot of that there too. I mean, there's so many different angles. I mean, he's adopted. He's biracial.
Wow.
He's it's a product of two educators, high school teachers who really were no nonsense. They raised him the right way. And if he came home and wanted to play video games and go ride his bike, he couldn't do it until his homework was done. I mean, we are talking kind of a Andy Griffith type upbringing, and
wow.
He grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, but a little more inland, and so he grew up cheering for the San Francisco Giants. But he's more the place he grew up is called Linden, California. It's the cherry festival capital of the world. They have a big annual festival every year. So it's very agricultural and rural up there. And he talks about it as a perfect place to grow up. You know, you go down to the neighborhood pizza shop and everybody in town knows everybody. And he said, the way he put it in the book, he said, I had a mom in every house on my block because it kind of paints a picture of this kind of picturesque 1950s type upbringing. And then you airdrop this kid who just happened to be taller and stronger than everybody in his town. It's kind of like a Clark Kent thing, Clark Kent and Superman, where you airdrop him into the middle of Manhattan and you say, all right, you are now the face of the New York Yankees. And we kind of trace that adjustment process, and it took some time. It did, because for a kid who was a little bit shy and a little bit awkward at times, to kind of grow into himself. And one of the scouts I talked to, the baseball scouts who watched him in his high school years, said this kid was like a newborn giraffe, just trying to find his footing in a lot of ways. And he was kind of gangly and awkward. And then you look now, and I think the Clark Kent Superman thing is actually very appropriate, because he is a superhero in baseball clothes. I mean, if you were going to draw a picture of an extra strong athlete, if you had never watched a baseball game in your life and you came and watched the Yankee game, you would look at Judge and you would say, wow, he must be the best player on the field. And I think that that's not something that that comes very easily. It's more than just the raw physique. It's the way he carries himself and handles himself too.
There you go. You go from the small town to the big show in the big city, basically. And so it's quite the ride. And so you detail what it's like for him to grow up as a child, his birth and everything, and all the way up to that, and some of the things that shaped him and made him into the person he became.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big part of the story, because for so many, it's hard to make it in the major leagues. The odds are astronomical against you playing one game in the major leagues, let alone to be named Rookie of the Year and to become the starting right fielder for the most prestigious franchise in Major League Baseball, and then to become an all-star and win an MVP award. I think it took a lot of people along the way to draw him to that point, and we kind of investigate that. One of the big situations he had was in 2016. He finally made his major league debut, and he gets called up. He hits a home run in his first at bat, so he starts off great. But then he realizes that it is really difficult at the major league level, and he winds up, his batting average is 179 at the end of the year, and so that's obviously striking out a lot. He goes home, and on the flight back to California, he pulls out his iPhone, and he types in the notes column there. He says 179 at the top. And he wanted to use that as motivation to basically say, never again. I'm going to do everything in my power to work and make sure that this never happens again, because he got embarrassed by it. Major league pitchers were eating him up for lunch. You know, they had figured out, hey, don't throw the big kid a fastball down the middle. And he was just striking out over and over. And so one of the things that he did was somebody with his agency connected him with this guy named Richard Schenk, who is a character, man. He's a self-taught hitting instructor in St. Peters, Missouri. Actually owns a billiards hall. And by watching on TiVo, watching Barry Bonds at bats and rolling them back with a wiffle ball bat in his basement, he somehow has, or claims to have, unlocked the secret of what made Barry Bonds great. And so somebody in Judge's agency said, hey, why don't you go talk to this guy? And so they did set up a meeting. And at first, he was very skeptical, as I would be too, that this kind of mid-50s guy with a little paunch over his tummy and in jeans and dad jeans could somehow out-hit a professional athlete. But they did what was called a contact drill, where they would put a tee side by side, and they would say, go. And every time, this guy Richard would get to the ball faster than Judge did. And so after a couple rounds of that, Judge looked at him and said, hey, man, what are you doing here? And so that started this kind of renaissance that Judge did in shortening his swing, getting to the ball faster, hitting it harder. Oh. And so this is really the building blocks, and it takes you a little bit behind the scenes of what made Aaron Judge a great all-star athlete.
Wow. I mean, and the swing is important too, even though everything's coming at you at 100 miles, an hour roughly, and you've got a split second, that whole swing and how you swing it and how you use it. I learned a little bit at it was the golf legend Arnold Palmer's School of Golf. And man, I mean, just it's like an artwork. It's a science. It's craziness to be able to get that perfect. And I imagine it varies depending upon what sort of athlete you are, size and build and everything else.
Absolutely. There's so many different mechanics. And yeah, when I was trying to learn to play golf, I read the same book you did, trying to break down the swing and then try to learn from the pros there. And but anybody who has gone to a golf course or tried to hit in a game can tell you that just because you swing it right one time doesn't mean you're going to do it the next time. The next time my golf ball is going in the sand or is going off into the lake. And it's very rare to be able to do it consistently over and over and over. And I think that's what makes the professionals great, is that they're not perfect every single time. And you're going to see a professional athlete strike out. It's part of the game. It happens. They're going to look silly sometimes, but it's cutting down on those errors. And yeah, to use that golf analogy and take it one step further, I'm chasing my golf ball in the woods every single time and trying to hack it out of the high grass. These guys are probably keeping it on the fairway if they were professional golfers.
Oh yeah, I mean, professional sports players. I mean, like I see like professional hockey guys, and those guys can land a puck on a nail on a plane flying down the highway or something. It's just insane what they can do. But yeah, it's hard and it's challenging, and then it's grueling, and I know the MLB's, tried to do different things to tweak the game, maybe speed it up. I know they've got those cool boxes now that, you can kind of see what's going on with the strike zone and stuff. And how's that all working out for the baseball industry?
I'll tell you what, as a reporter, I love the pitch clock because baseball has always been the one of the games, I guess golf is one, but without a clock. Basketball has a clock, hockey has a clock, football has a clock. But with baseball, if the pitcher wanted to stand there on the mound and not throw the ball for 20 minutes, he could, in theory. Now you can't do that anymore. Now you're limited to 15 or 20 seconds. Wow. And so it really has cut down on the dead time. And what I found, I was a little skeptical about it too. This is the first year we've had the rule change here. The pitch clock has changed it so much for the better because it's cut out a lot of the dead time where guys are standing around and adjusting their belt and tying their shoes. You can't do that stuff anymore. And so now you've compressed it where you're just getting the action. And you've lost none of the action. The pitches are still being thrown. The hits are coming off the bat. Guys are running around the bases. That's what we come here to a ball game to watch. And the difference is that we're doing it now, 2.5 hours, 2:45 instead of 3:45 or 4 hours. And I just think that, especially with this younger generation, first of all, that 4-hour baseball game is too long anyway, in my opinion. And I've lived through so many of them. The Yankees, Red Sox, Sunday night at Fenway Park, where I'm walking out at 1:30, 2 in the morning, and I'm just saying, oh my gosh, I got to catch a flight in the morning. What am I doing here? Now we're cutting that down to a much more reasonable. But and it's not about me; it's about the fans. Kids want to stay up and watch these games. Kids have school in the morning. People have to go to work in the morning. I think that it's baseball listening to what their customers need, and sometimes that means, hey, speed it up a little bit. And they still want to see 9 innings. They want to see runs scored. They want to see the action on the field. We just don't need to see guys standing around for unknown amounts of time.
I think it's great. I mean, I understood the prior way. You know, it was kind of like a chess match or a poker game sort of thing, where you're kind of playing, and there's a little bit of mentally screwing with each other. I think that's one of the challenges of baseball too. You know, it's been kind of glorified in different movies about how you know, baseball players have a lot of time on their hands, maybe than some other people, and they're very superstitious, and they have different things. And when you're in the dugout and you've got time, you know, it can fuck with your head, you know, especially probably if you're trying to get to 62 and, you know, you hit 50 and you're like, oh man, it's going to, and then you get down to those last two. And I think I remember this, you know, they were playing on TV. They're like, he's almost there. And you're like, hey, I wonder what it'd like to be that guy where, you know, the whole world's going, when are you going to hit the next one? And
we definitely get into that in the book, the pressure that was put on him, and because it became this phenomenon where Judge wanted to go out there every day and try and help the Yankees win, and that was his goal. That was his single mindset. The fans and the media, we all came here for a different reason, and you could tell that, especially at Yankee Stadium during the late in the chase when he's around 57, 58 home runs. The crowd was different here. It was dead silent, like the Masters, you know, when he would come up to the plate, because everybody came out and pulled out their cell phones and was recording every pitch of it, waiting to see if they were going to be a witness to history. And it just got kind of weird at times. Some of the Yankees were getting up out of the dugout and saying, hey, it's okay to make noise here. It's weird to have the ballpark be completely quiet, everybody standing, and
like
just kind of this exactly. It was kind of this hush, and it's nothing that I've ever experienced before. You know, and during my time on the beat, I was here when Derek Jeter was chasing 3,000 hits, which is a great career milestone, and Alex Rodriguez did the same. But we knew that they were going to get there eventually. It was a career record. This with Judge, there was kind of a time limit here, and you would be looking at the calendar and you say, oh, they've only got 12 games left. They've got 10 games left. He's down to 7 games left. Is he going to get there? And if he didn't get there, then the numbers were going to completely reset for this year. So there was definitely pressure, and obviously there were family members coming in, friends. It was all anybody was talking about, and sometimes he would hit a ball. I vividly remember this. They were playing a game here at Yankee Stadium, and he hit a ball down the left field line, a double. And he's running into second base, and you kind of hear the crowd go, oh,
wow.
Exactly.
That's fucked up.
And it was just kind of like, what, you know, I understand we all want to see a home run here, but home runs don't happen every single day. So it was cool. It was a phenomenon unlike any I've experienced.
And probably really good for baseball and giving a resurgence, and I like all the changes they're making and stuff. It's fun. You know, I grew up with old world baseball. You know, I grew up a Dodgers fan, and who was my favorite player back in the 70s? Steve Garvey.
Steve Garvey, I bet.
Steve Garvey, yeah. And so, you know, I love the game, but yeah, there's only so many times I can watch you tie your shoe and rearrange the business and talk to the manager and stuff. And, you know, I remember those days. So there you go. What do you hope people come away from when they read the book?
I hope they come away with an appreciation for where we stand right now in baseball history. It's great to talk about Judge, and you know, he's a fantastic player, of course, and it is a book that centers on Judge, but there's a lot of different angles that I wanted to explore in this. And so while it is a book about Judge, and it is a book about how the New York Yankees are run in this day and age, I feel like fans of any team will come away from reading this book and kind of learn something about baseball, the way it's operating, because I was able to, you know, through my day job here at MLB.com, I know almost everybody here in the Yankee organization, and I have their contact information. I was able to lean upon them and kind of peel back the layers of the onion here and say, all right, when this was happening, what was going on behind the scenes? When this was happening, what was the thought process in that? And so there's a lot of stories from behind the scenes in a major league front office that you're not going to find anywhere else in this book, and I'm proud of that. I'm also proud of the historical work I was able to do here, because one thing I did not want to do in this book was just have a recounting of, it would have been very easy, but I could have just said, on this day, Judge hit home run number 48. And then on this day, he hit number 49. That would have been boring to me. And I already lived it once. So I didn't feel like that was the story I wanted to tell. So as I mentioned earlier, what I wanted to do was connect him to Babe Ruth, to Roger Maris. And by doing that, I dug through a lot of books, a lot of archival newspapers. There's not many guys left from the 1961 Yankees. Unfortunately, Roger Maris isn't with us anymore, but there are two players left from that team, in Bobby Richardson and Tony Kubek, and I was able to get both of them to talk at length for this book, and not just about what Roger Maris went through in 1961, because that's been well chronicled, but I wanted to get their take on what it was like here in this Twitter, Instagram world of 2022 to watch somebody, another Yankee, going after their friend Roger's record, and they were both great on that. So I feel like we have these vignettes throughout the book where we kind of flash back to 1961, and it ties everything together really nicely to the kind of the history of baseball, because one thing baseball does better than any other sport, I would argue, is it celebrates its own history, and what happened today is connected to what happened yesterday. And I definitely wanted to make that point that this does not exist in a vacuum. It's not just about one player having a great year. It's a book about baseball that I think a fan of any team will really find something they enjoy.
And coming from small town and greatness and going through the gauntlet of life and the journey of learning your trade and your craft and then being super successful at it. Awesome. And it's been wonderful having you on the show, Bryan. Give us your .com so people can find you on the interwebs, please.
Sure, absolutely. It's great being on with you. Thank you, Chris. It's Bryan, BRYAN Hoch at. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I was giving you my email address. My bad. Although you can email me too if you want to. It's Bryan-Hoch.com. BRYAN-HOCH.com.
There you go. Thank you very much again, Bryan, for being on the show. Thanks to my audience for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, and all those crazy places we are on the internet. Order up the book wherever fine books are sold, but stay out of those alleyway bookstores because you might end up getting in, you might get mugged. Anyway, I was trying to find the page I was looking for. Order up wherever fine books are sold. 62, Aaron Judge, the New York Yankees, and the Pursuit of Greatness, available July 11th, 2023. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.